Namaste and greetings everyone. Welcome to episode number 79 of your show ManageBetter. I am your host Anshuman Tiwari. 79 shows. Who thought I will get there? I myself didn't think that way, but this is the joy of doing something consistently and bringing value to all of you. And it is your affection support that I have been able to get to these numbers. Today is a very special show for me. I've been wanting to do this topic for a while, and I wanted somebody with the credentials that our guest is today to be the speaker. Thankfully, everything has clicked, the stars have aligned, and today we have Shiv Shivakumar, who will now, in a bit, I will bring him to the show. But he will speak about a very special topic, which is a career is lived forward but understood backwards. And he himself will explain a little bit more, but you can imagine the depth of the topic that we try and live our career forward, but can only understand it backwards. And somebody who has lived a long career has done well, very well, is in the best position to explain all of that. So a little bit about Shiv. Shiv is, of course, today the operating partner at Advent International, based out of Gurgaon. He's also the non-executive chairman at and board of directors at BKC India, which is Burger King. You might know more about Burger King than BKC, and he's on the advisory board of multiple entities, multiple equity, IMU, IM Udaipur, and board member of XLRI, XIMB, ex-chairman of and CEO of PepsiCo, Nokia, and one of the most celebrated managers, leaders in India today. He's also top voice on LinkedIn, has been one from a long time, an engineer from IIT Madras, and then from MBA from IIM Calcutta and the Wharton Business School. One of the very few people who has both distinguished alumnus from IIT Madras and IIM Calcutta. Several awards, just the two of them I'll mention. One was KPMG IMA Award for Outstanding Leadership, and the other Asian Association of Management Organizations for Asia Leadership Award. Worked with multiple brands, over 60 brands, companies like Hindustan Lever, Nokia, PepsiCo, and of course, most recently with the Aditya Birla Group before the Advent International private equity firm. Speaks at almost any forum that you have heard of, including all the top colleges or top institutes in India. He of course believes in giving back to society, and this session today is, I would say, an example of that. And he has been on the board of governors of IIM Ahmedabad, XLRI, XIMB, IIM Udaipur, been on Godrej Consumer Board, Products Board for 8 years, and the list goes on. So I will, of course, quickly invite Shiv for opening comments. But one thing struck me in his profile also is that he's delivered over 25 convocation and commencement speeches, and these are all top institutes in India. He's an author of 3 books, 2 of them being bestsellers, and I'm really honored to invite him to my show today. Welcome, Shiv. Good morning and welcome to the show. Thank you, first of all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anshuman. You're doing, I think, absolute yeoman service. You mentioned that this is session number 79. That requires a hell of a lot of grit, longevity, and patience to get 79 speakers almost every other weekend. That's a fantastic thing that you're doing. And I'm sure that your audience appreciates that. And I'm sure that you're getting kudos for it from all the people who really like the engaging topics that you're discussing.
Thank you very much, Shiv. But I mean, obviously, the motivation always is that I realized couple of years ago that I had a little bit of a network and I had some audience. So I thought that I can become the bridge between people who can do this, and that is a service that I can offer.
That's the power of digital, building bridges between businesses and thoughts and ideas.
Absolutely. What will we do with all the network if we can't put it to use for people?
True.
So thanks, Shiv. The session today is, of course, this is a show where we have some questions for you. Some questions, you often answer, and we try to collate them for you, and we will go through them. And of course, one quick reminder to my audience quickly is that is more keen on taking your questions, right? So while I, of course, have questions for him, he's quite keen to take your question. And please don't waste this opportunity. If you have questions, you can type it now if you are joining from LinkedIn or YouTube. Both questions you can type in, and we will take your questions. I will be able to curate, and we will go through one of them. But before we get to the audience questions, Shiv, I have one quick
Sure.
question to started with. This is the most common question I think you might be getting because you speak at a lot of places where career is a core topic. What is a good career eventually? So, people want to make money, some people want title, and some people may want both, some people may not want either of them, and so on. So, what defines a good career, and how can one even think about it?
Yeah.
The thinking part is more important. Any views on that?
Sure. I think that's a good question to start with. And I'm restricting myself to the corporate managerial career. The IAS is also career. If you're an
Yeah.
author, that is or a journalist, that also is a career. But I think by and large, your audience who's logged in today for the program is thinking more about corporate managerial careers. The simple way I would define it for everybody on the call, Anshuman, is to say, in your given area of work, are you building high competence as a professional? Okay, somebody who's acknowledged in that area as being very, very good at it. Your self identification comes from it. Okay, and your rewards, recognition, whatever it is, all are related to that. Okay, and that self identification is very, very important because that self identification drives pride in your work. It also drives learning about your work. It also drives your ability to work hard at it and build more at it. The result of this is either a position. Okay, people want to go to the CEO level or CXO level, or it's about money. Okay, you get remunerated for your area of expertise and recognition, or it's about recognition itself. You're awarded something or whatever it is. When you start at the beginning of your career, you're much more self-centered. Okay, so Anshuman starts his career. Let's take he's finished engineering. He's very self-centered. He says, I know this about engineering. I'm going to this industry, etc. Then after a period of time, Anshuman gets married. He has kids. Then he has got siblings to take care of. He's got aged parents to take care of. On this journey, that self-centeredness which you started with on your career starts diluting because you need to also take into account your spouse, your children, your parents, etc. So some of the decisions you might take on your career will be led by that. And there will be a deviation from the original direction that you started with when you're all alone at the end of your degree. So that's the way I would, paint the point of a, career for you.
So, in a way, Shiv, what you're saying is also that there is no one answer to it. It can depend on person to person. People who have more, like in your case, I mean, in my case, like you explained, I have multiple, op, I would say, avenues to think of. So my reasons will be different from somebody else's reason, and my own reasons at the beginning of my career, middle of my career, high end of my career can be different. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Absolutely. There was a classmate of mine, Chandra, a very bright person, very good guy. He decided to stay in Chennai because his father was based in Chennai and he didn't want to move out. Automatically, as a result of that, he sacrificed the number of offers he got either out of Bombay or out of Bangalore or wherever else. But that was a deliberate decision he took to say, I must be with my father and support.
Yeah, I think that is something that many people in India can relate to, and it's a very apt example. So I think that gets us started. So I'll quickly move to another point. In a way, you hinted that, and my question is more around what is important through various stages of career from junior, middle, senior leadership roles, and how can again one think about it? So junior, middle, and senior, what is important? And because the show also has people who are early stage, people who are middle career, and some who look more senior but are not like me. So all of those mixed together. But what is more important in these stages, according to you? And see, you've seen the whole spectrum and you've
Yeah,
guided many people through it. So that's why
yeah,
maybe you're in best position to answer this.
absolutely. So if you look at a career is a long duration. It is a
Hmm.
marathon. Some people will say it's a series of sprints, whatever it is, but it's a long one. So typical careers today of a long career would be anything between 30 to 40, 30 to 50 years. Because in this time frame, you'll do paid jobs, you'll do unpaid jobs, you'll do contribution jobs like board positions, etc. Okay, think of it like that. Okay, it's a
Hmm.
continuum. There are some things which are absolutely underpinning any good career over a long period of time, whether you're in junior management, middle management, or senior management. And they are learning is lifelong. You have to constantly learn every day because the life of a concept today is about 12 months. So you have to constantly learn. You cannot rest on the degree you had even 5 years ago.
Correct.
Second is networking and building a network of people who can stand by you and who can help you. That continues whether you are, you know, day one or day 25,000 or whatever it is. Okay. The next one is leadership. The ability to display leadership of the situation at hand, whether you're a junior manager, middle manager, or senior manager, is very important. And the last one I would say is the ability to build on an ecosystem and work within an ecosystem and not work in silos. Okay, those are four things which are absolutely common at any point of time. Now, let's start with a junior manager. A junior manager, when you start, you are learning the know how about how to do things. Okay, that's what you need to do. So, you are the master of your own work. You can be a sales manager and you might have a few distributors working for you, a few salespeople working for you, but by and large, you are the master of your own work. And the expectation of a junior manager, Anshuman, is always execution. A junior manager must execute brilliantly at what he or she has been given, be it
Yeah.
sales, be it operations, be it finance, whatever it is. If your business is or your job is to tally the books, you must do it very, very well. If your job is to drive distribution, you must do that very, very well. If your job is to ensure that you reduce the quality defects in your factory as a shop floor manager, you must do that very well. So
Hmm.
execution is absolutely critical. You own your work. Without execution, there is no future. So a junior manager does that very, very well. That's the first one. When you come to middle manager, which is after about 5 7 years or so, you are now coordinating work of other people. You are now running a process amongst all the processes in the organization. Okay, you are in charge of training the people who work directly for you. So middle management typically are the workhorses in an organization. They are the people who keep the process running. They're the people who keep the learning and development of their subordinates running. They are the first people I've always gone to when I've had a crisis in an organization, because they understand which measure is working, which measure is not working, and where the problem is. Okay, so
Hmm.
they are virtually like the doctors who can signal to you what's going wrong in process of people in an organization. Okay, that's the role of middle management. The role of senior management, apart from managing the complexities, and I distinguish senior management and leadership separately. Senior management is managing the complexity which comes out of the organization. For example, supply chain will want the lowest inventory, sales will want a higher inventory, finance will want negative working capital, the factory will want to keep some inventory of raw material for working use of working capital, etc. Those complexities is what a senior manager does, the management of the complexities. And finally, when you look at leadership, leadership is about moving people from mindset A to mindset B. You're an unprofitable organization. How do you get people to think that you need to get profitable, and why? You're not a learning company. How do you get people to think and act like a learning company? You're an insulated company, does not work with the ecosystem. How does the leader ensure that the company works with the ecosystem? Okay, so leadership, and at both senior manager levels as well as fundamental leadership levels, requires vision, requires direction. Taking responsibility is very, very important.
Hmm.
Responsibility just increases on your shoulders as you go from junior manager to a leadership level. Okay, and the load of the organization, both good and bad, rest on your shoulders, whether you like it or not. The other very different thing when you have to what you have to manage when you are a senior manager or a leader is the politics in the organization. The politics can be outside your country, the politics can be in your country, the politics can be with people working below you or in some teams which are very political. You have to have a way of managing. So in my
Hmm.
own work style as a leader, what I've always tried to do is to micro sense as opposed to micromanage. I walk
Hmm.
around a lot. I talk to a lot of people. I visit a lot of customers and I keep picking up signals about how we are doing. And I feed those signals back into the organization to say, hey, this is what I'm picking up. Maybe you want to think about it.
Hmm. I completely liked how you were able to, and this differentiation between the senior management and leadership is actually quite apt because I have seen in my own career that we many of us get senior, but we can't really be called the top leadership of the organization. We still in that zone where we are in that, like you said, getting things done, and maybe a little bit more complex. And one phrase I caught, over the years is that at times the hardest transition is when we become not when we become manager. It is when we become manager of managers.
Yeah.
So, and I've noticed that in the last 10, 15 years that my transition from individual to manager was fairly easy. Uh, Difficult at that time, but in the hindsight, it looks easy. But when manager of managers, particularly globally, that completely blows things up. And you rightly pointed out that. So some questions have started coming in. So just a quick reminder to the audience that we will be very soon getting into the questions, and Shiv has repeatedly reminded that he would love to answer as many questions as we can. So do let your questions come in. People have liked your comment around microsense versus micromanagement already. Some are commenting. So thanks, Shiv, for that.
Anybody who's worked with me will realize that.
Maybe this person has worked. Okay. Moving on, I'll ask maybe a couple of more questions that I had, and then we slip into the audience one. So,
Sure thing.
one common area, Shiv, and this is all round, and I do in my, I would say, as a hobby, I do coach people, particularly mid-career people, because having gone through it and maybe in many ways still in it, I do see that there are issues like stagnation, inertia, difficulty, burnout that people face during mid-career, and I have something to contribute. But one thing that I hear back from people in these conversations is that I feel I'm working very hard, but I'm not able to communicate the impact of my work, and or nobody's listening. I work very hard, I do everything that is required, but I can't communicate the impact of my work. And you and I both know that if we can't communicate the impact of our work, nobody cares, or should care. So what can people do in this circumstance when they feel that they can't communicate the impact of their work but would like to?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think if you work in a company which has more than 200, 300 people, then you have to have the ability to communicate the work that you're doing. If
Hmm.
you're working for a small company, you don't need to catch the eye of the boss because the boss's eye is always on you. You don't need to worry about that. So in small companies, it's very easy to figure out who is contributing, who is not contributing, and move forward. In larger organizations, and I'm saying more than 250 people, either in an office or on a floor or wherever it is, you must have the ability to communicate whatever you're doing and whatever you're achieving. Unfortunately, we live in a communication dominated world, and we must recognize that. Living in a communication dominated world means that attention spans are short. In
Hmm.
the past, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when I started my career, we only said that the CEO's attention span was short. Today, the average manager's attention span is short, whether it's a junior manager or a middle manager or a senior manager. He's constantly on his WhatsApp, he's constantly on his phone, he's completely distracted. So, the simplest way I would tell you is develop simple elevator pitches in your area of expertise, in your area of work. So, for example, everybody has a reference benchmark in his or her head. Remember that at work. It is typically about last year, it's about last quarter, it's about last month, it's about last week, it's about next week, it's about next month, it's about next quarter, it's about next year. So that's the continuum of attention which exists in an organization on any discipline. So develop elevator speeches in terms of what have you contributed last year? Simple 4-5 lines. What have you contributed last quarter, last month, or this week? So have that ability to constantly refine it to say, this is what the organization did, that is what I did to contribute towards it. Or this is what the organization is headed towards, and this is what I am going to do. Okay. Develop that ability to communicate in 3 to 5 sentences over the time horizon that I mentioned. That's absolutely critical. And in doing so, don't go across as I'm the only hero, I'm the guy doing it, nobody else is doing it. Put that communication in the context of what's happening, or in the context of your team, in the context of your zone, in the context of your organization. If you only say, I'm only doing this, nobody's going to listen to you. Sooner or later, you will be the bigger loser. So your contribution has to be, hey, you know what? We launched this product, very successful. I did my bit towards this. You know what? We had this crisis. I put my shoulder to the wheel. I did this. That's how we must context it.
I think you ended with a phrase which I will catch on to, that shoulder to the wheel phrase, and I see this a lot in my own career and people when I meet that there are all kinds of people, some people who will take credit for everybody else's job and they haven't really contributed. So it works in the short term. Maybe people will not see through it for a month, 2 months, 6 months, maybe a year. But eventually people start seeing through it that, hey, Anshuman, you haven't really contributed to it and you are actually claiming work of others. That's a very important balance that you suggest. Questions are now pouring in. I think Shiv, people have taken your instructions seriously, but I am the host of the show, so I will have slight
You have the veto. You have the
slight veto
idea. Yeah.
and privilege as well. So, but we'll quickly get into the questions. There is one question which repeatedly comes up, and when we were preparing for the show, you also had this point of view that uh, many of us, and I will say I am not from a tier one institute, both in my engineering and in my MBA. Maybe the MBA I did from my Summa Institute, which is a popular one in Bombay. So fairly, I would say tier 1.1 kind of institute. But millions or thousands of people, middle managers, slightly senior, starting their career, all of us are from institutes that are not called tier one institute. How do I still manage my career? Because I still have those aspirations that any tier one person will have. I still have those ambitions, aspirations, dreams, and everything. But obviously, not having that tier one start could be seen as a handicap. What are your views on this? Because you would have seen all kinds of it. So you
Yeah.
lived the tier one life, you've seen the other life. What is your view?
Yeah. The first thing is, you're absolutely right. For years, a lot of my subordinates would call me the three alphabet manager. IIT, IIM, HLL, etc. That's why you only have three alphabets in your career. So they used to joke about it. Okay, here's what I would say. I think in any organization you work, irrespective of where you study, performance is important. Performance is paramount. You must understand in the organization you work in what are the definitions or understanding of work and results. That's very important. How is work? Because in every organization, work is done in a particular way. Results are produced in a particular way. You must understand how that organization values it and are you aligned to that? Number one. Second, you must always polish your communication and hence your confidence about the results that you're producing, okay, or the work that you're producing. That's very, very important. Okay. And at the end of the day, track record matters. Your tier one degree might help you in the first job, at best open the window to the second.
We We seem to have lost the feed from Shiv. So guys, give me a minute. There is a little bit of a hitch. I checked my end. Everything seems okay. I've just messaged him. Should be should be back in a minute or two. So meanwhile, what you can do, of course, is that those who are attending this live, please take some time to check Shiv's profile. Follow him if you like his content. He shares a lot of what he's sharing today in this session on his LinkedIn as well. And you can of course share or follow me as well. That also always helps because I keep doing these sessions. Like we pointed out, this is 79. So there have been 78 other fantastic ones. I will also share quickly my YouTube uh, channel, which has more details on all the shows till now. So you can see the YouTube channel on the screen, and this should be useful. Okay, it's taking a little longer than expected. We are actually quite lucky that Shiv had a international travel this weekend, which incidentally got a little postponed. So I can take some messages. Anand Ram, while we resume shortly, it's a great initiative. Thank you very much, Anand. Yeah, we will keep doing this. Oh, so all the Anand seems to have good thoughts today. Anand Vaishnav. And we will, don't worry, guys. Shiv has let me know that he will be rejoining
Can you hear
and
me?
he's there.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Sorry,
Uh,
guys. This is the
uh,
Gurgaon power outage. Okay. My apologies.
we can see you well, we can hear you well. So,
Yeah.
and I think it was
Nice.
only a total of 2 minutes or so. Not too bad.
Yeah. It's because the power goes off in Gurgaon, and that's what I was worried about. But anyway, I'm back. Yeah.
No
So,
problem.
as I was mentioning, so you need to polish your communication and your confidence about your work. Next
Hmm.
is India is a huge opportunity area. There's so many industries opening up, so many jobs coming up, etc. So you don't need to worry. And the last stat I'll give you and an analogy for you to think about. If you look at top tier business schools, take the top 20 business schools in India as an example, okay, or
Mhm.
the top 20 engineering schools or whatever it is. Less than 3% of people from those institutes make it to the CEO role, believe it or not. You can track
Hmm.
this. Okay, so a lot of people drop out, be their own, run their own company, etc. But if you
Yeah.
fundamentally look at it, less than 3% of a batch makes it to CEO. So it's not that just getting into top tier institute will automatically open doors to the CEO role. That doesn't happen. Let me give you an analogy which will possibly resonate better with you. I'm sure a lot of you are cricket followers. 20 years ago, if you played for Bombay or Karnataka or Delhi, you're almost automatically assured that you had a nod in for the Indian cricket team. Today, that doesn't matter. Today, the
Hmm.
Indian cricket team comes from everywhere in the country. Okay, IPL teams pick on what? On form, not on reputation. You have Joe Root sitting, English captain, sitting on the sidelines. You have Ben Stokes sitting on the sideline. So it's horses for courses, and people are picking winners for that situation. And that thinking is very prevalent across all industries today. So you have to produce results, You have to have the self-confidence. You have to project that. And India is a land of opportunity. The newer industries which will open up, they don't have any reference point in terms of where to get talent. When telecom opened up, they went to FMCG. When digital finance is opening up, they'll go to technology sector. Okay, so wherever you are, be damn good at your work is my simple point. Don't worry whether you're tier 1, tier 2, tier 1.3. Don't worry about all that. Beat the living daylights out of the job that you have. That's the most important thing.
And I'm glad you said this because you have seen the entire spectrum shift. But in my own limited way, what I've also seen is that in the entirety of things, the tier one, tier two, whatever tier, the engineering, MBA, BSc, BCom, whatever we did, chartered accountancy is already past. We have already done it. We can't go back and change it. What we can change is like you said, be very good at what you're doing, and then shine. And if you shine, somebody will notice. So that's the only way.
In fact, that's a good point, Anshuman. I was going to end my session with that, but I will say it since you brought it up here. Where you started, you had no control over it. Which family you were born into, which city you were born into, which college you went, which school you went. You didn't have much control over it. But where you end is entirely in your hand. And that entirely in your hand, one dimension of it is absolutely important, is work hard, produce results. Okay. If you work very hard, the only thing which can stop you is bad luck. Like for all of the Nokia people, we work very hard. What stopped us was bad luck when the company chose the wrong operating system. Okay. So bad luck can stop you, but fundamentally, you'll always find your place in the sun as long as you work hard.
I'm sorry I stole your thunder towards the what you planned for the end, but it's a good point anyway, because I think it appeals to everybody that we have something in our control. We can't really blame the past or always keep moaning and groaning about the past. It is anyway gone. I'll take a question now. We are midway or so. Hassan, he's worked with you in the past. He's been with HLL or HUL in the IT supply. And his question, primarily after 30 years approximately experience, he's CEO of CAMS India. His question is toward the end. What are the shifts you had to make in your leadership style from when you moved from Indian conglomerate, from global companies to Indian conglomerate? So this is a little bit from your experience.
No problem. Absolutely. I think that's a fair question. So here's what happens. If you look at the average multinational today, the average multinational today is very matrixed. Okay. Everybody, can say no. Nobody can say yes. That's the problem of the matrix organization. Now, the matrix organization has its own pulls and pressures. A matrix organization, you need to influence. Your ideas need to matter. You need to carry people along. As a result of which, the matrix organization, when employed in an MNC, slows down that company. I did a session for Procter & Gamble in January this year. When I looked at the data, I was shocked. The global GDP over the last 10 years had grown 3.5%. The top 100 multinationals had grown 3.8%. They had not grown at all. It's actually the tech companies which had beaten them, and they had grown at 8-9%. So the average multinational is actually losing as defined by the top 100 multinationals today. Multinationals have a global view, global value system, global processes. And multinationals have scale because of which they understand the lessons which come from that scale. And when you're in that environment, you tend to pick up those things. Okay. In a multinational, what matters is alignment. Are you aligned to the direction of the organization? Are you aligned to the bosses, the future bosses, etc.? An Indian conglomerate values loyalty more than capability. That's one of the reasons they don't win in many sectors, many more sectors than they should win. Because this feeling comes from the past, where access to license, access to market, access to capital was most important. And Indian conglomerates had a lot of that. But in a fast changing world, if you do not have capable people, if you do not have people who are agile and who are able to win the game for you in a future world, loyalty will not hold. So that's the fundamental difference between an MNC and an Indian conglomerate. And sooner or later, Indian conglomerates will recognize that the game they are playing will actually hurt them.
And quite a few of Indian conglomerates will also probably become MNCs in some time. That could also add another dimension, because
There are many
there.
Indian conglomerates or multinationals in their own right. They are in the top 200, 300 organizations in the world, etc. But their outlook has to be global. That's a very important thing. The first multinational in the world was the East India Company. The East India Company was the first company which had a country manager called an India country manager, because their source of revenue was taxes. Okay. And then people built a global framework for operating, etc. You can be an Indian multinational, but you cannot have an Indian framework of managing the world. You need to have a global framework of managing the world.
Fair enough. We took one question from LinkedIn. We'll take one from YouTube. And this is, I'm sure this question you've got a lot of times. While this might be for Vishal, but it's a general question. When should we necessarily think about switching jobs versus we can consider? So basically, when should we consider switching jobs? When we are a little junior in the organization.
When we are?
When we are a little junior in the organization,
Okay.
what is the right time to think about switching jobs?
Yeah. See, whenever you are in a career, as I mentioned right in the beginning, there are 3-4 characteristics of what you will decide. Number one is money. Is the money good enough for the talent I have? That's a question you'll ask at every level. Second is, am I getting fulfillment out of the job? Okay, that's the other question you'll ask. And that fulfillment can be about work-life balance at one level, learning at another level. Okay. And the third question you can ask is, am I getting sufficient fame, recognition, badge value, out of this whole exercise? Those are the 3 things that we look at. The next one is, in our own mind, we have a sense of progress in our jobs, which can be either vertical or horizontal or helix. Most people think of their own career progression as vertical. Very few people have vertical growth in their careers. Most people don't want horizontal careers where I move to parallel jobs, but I'm willing to accept a helixical career where I move a little up, and then go to the top. Okay, that's what people think about. In whichever company you are in, you must ask yourself: is the company growing? Is my work decent? Will roles open up in this company? Roles can open up in a company because there's high attrition at the top. Okay, in tech industry, you have constant churn at the top. So roles will always keep opening up. So if I bide my time, will I have a shot at a CXO role? Will I have a shot at a CEO role? If you work for an Indian company where the owner is sitting there and he's got his or her people sitting below that, then by automatic definition of loyalty, there's only so much you can go up. Okay.
Correct.
Next, you must give every company you work with at least 3 years, 3 to 4 years, so that they understand you, you understand. When you switch from a company, do not switch because you're unhappy with the current company. When you're unhappy with the current company, then every offer you get looks very, very good. On the other hand, if you're in a happy spot and you get a very good offer, then you're making a really good decision to say, hey, you know what? This is a damn good break. Next thing I would say is, basis the question, you said I've done 3 years or 4 years. You've done 3 years, maybe repeating the same thing, which is not value. Trust me. Ask yourself, what have you learned in the 3 years in the context in which you work? For example, if the context is the turnaround of a company, that's a huge valuable experience. If the context is rapid growth in a company, that's a huge experience in itself. So you have to really value the context in which you're doing the job and not the job for the sake of the job. So please think the context. If the context is enriching and you're learning a lot and really powering ahead, please continue to do that. Do more of it. Okay. And for some people, a career is a journey of experiences. I have a very good friend, ex-PepsiCo. For her, she wants constant excitement, constant energy. Okay, she'll get bored after 2-3 years in any one job. There are also people like that. Remember that. So you have to be clear as to what you are offering the company and what the company is offering you. If at any point of time you believe money, fulfillment, or fame stroke recognition is not working in your favor, and you've given the company 3 years, by all means look at another job.
So I hope, Vishal, who would ask this question, you have your answer, and through you, many other people would have the answer. Murthy SN, he's quite a regular on the show. So I think his question is more around, would be exciting to know your views on how does one constantly develop gravitas or executive presence as a leader and from early days and get included in the inner circle for decision making. Of course, the core question is how to improve one's executive presence.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so
That's a
and I
great
think you
question.
did briefly refer to it earlier, but anything specifically on this?
Yeah. So I'll give you, okay, there are many dimensions to this, but let me just give you one dimension to it, which is meeting. Okay. I asked 25% of our time minimum is spent attending meetings. If you're a senior manager, it's 60%. Okay. 25%. I have a simple question for you. If you want to develop gravitas, you must be the best prepared person for that meeting. Are you the best prepared person? Do you read all the material which is sent to you? Or if that's a topic given for a meeting, do you read everything about it? Do you land up in the meeting with very clear point of view to say, this is what works, doesn't work, this is how I can contribute, or whatever it is? I'm shocked that even in many boards, people don't come prepared for meetings. They just walk in and then they do what I call surround system management. Keep blabbering. Everybody will look around and say, this guy is talking rubbish or this girl is talking rubbish. At the end of the meeting, they'll say that person wasted our time. Be the best prepared person in the room. Read all documents thoroughly. Send your comments early in. That's the best way for you to create gravitas. And next, when you speak in a meeting, be measured in your approach. Don't get emotional. You disagree in a decent manner. Somebody makes a good point, add on to that point. Acknowledge that your peer group or somebody actually said something valid. Give credit where it is due. So conduct yourself in a meeting in a very proper professional manner, and you'll automatically get the gravitas.
I was thinking as you were talking, and I could actually imagine some people doing exactly
Absolutely.
what you were saying. And
I
to
don't
my
want to
audience, I
mention
can
names,
say,
but I can tell you that, yeah.
I'm sure your names are more popular than mine, but while you were saying this, also I wanted to share this with my audience as well. See, Shiv is in a position where he, having said yes to this session, could have just landed for this session, but he did not do so. We actually he made sure that we did a test run. There are always some software glitches, and left me extremely impressed as a student that I need to learn from this experience that having said yes, going to a session, we need to do that
So
background.
Anshuman, for each question, all 10 questions, I have my own notes, okay, which are different from whatever I've said in the past, because it's important that I honor you and your audience. So you must come fully prepared, ladies and gentlemen.
I am grateful, and we know a little bit about your preparation because we all are fans of your book summaries, and some of them reach into 40, 50 pages as well. And it is very clear that you have written those slides on your own. Of course, the version we see is a PDF version, but the wording is, of course, clearly yours. So I think a lot to learn. So while you did speak about executive presence from a third person point of view, but you are a lesson yourself in many ways. We'll move to one more question since questions are pouring in and people have taken your advice seriously. So Deepashri Chaudhary has a question around. It is difficult to shift to a bigger organization even if you have done work in your previous smaller organization. And the bigger company will try and make you feel less qualified and so on. Any advice in this matter?
Not
And this has
true.
happened to me actually, but I actually got more. The reverse happened to me when I shifted from a smaller organization. I actually got more affection in the larger organization. But since Deepashri has asked this question, let's tackle it.
So that's what I'm saying. The first thing in that kind of question or thinking is, never believe you are anything less than equal to anybody else in any organization. A large organization has badge value, but you'll be amazed at the kind of inefficiency which is there in every large organization. Okay, let me give you some stats. In the last 20 years, no big company has beaten a small company. However, a fast company has beaten a slow company. So what you need to bring when you're from a small organization is energy, pace, agility in your thinking, in your actions, in your responsiveness. That is what is of value to a large company. All organizations need the two E's: energy, experience. They think they have experience, but large organizations have a closed loop system. Most of their energy is spent managing themselves. And that is where the agility and the energy of a small organization person comes in. Irrespective of which job you take in a large organization, don't worry about how they treat you. It's very important about how you treat yourself. It's extremely important that you need to treat yourself based on the merit and the talent and the results that you have produced. Please remember that always. Never have this big versus small. Okay, being big is actually a negative in my book in today's world.
And we have a lot of evidence today, like you pointed out earlier. Most large companies are actually struggling to grow at even at the
Absolutely.
pace of the global GDP.
So, yeah, a large FMCG company has scale. They've lost market share consistently over the last 10, 15 years in every category. So, you can be large, but you can be uncompetitive. A small company is small, but competitive. So, what is the definition of competitiveness and how can you leverage that for the function and the job is very important. Please think like that.
So I'm actually looking at this question. There were 2, 3 similar questions, so I'm actually using
Clubbing
Deepashri's
them.
question as a clubbing. One other representative question is Sanjay Kumar Pangaonkar, and his question is around the transition from one role to the next role. So the example I shared earlier from manager to manager of managers or those kind of any tips on how can we transition better from a
Yeah.
manager to a manager of managers?
Yeah. So in your own company, if you're switching role from being an individual contributor to a manager of managers, and I've done this mistake, and that's why I'm telling you. Uh, the first thing we think is, look, this company respects me. This company is rewarding me because of the way I worked. For example, some of the stupid mistakes I used to do when I became a manager of managers was I'm very detailed, very thorough. I wanted the same formats and everything to be maintained by my subordinates, which was stupid. The moment you do that, you take away diversity of opinion from the room. Don't ever do that. So you have your own unique style. You stick to that. But your strength as a manager of managers is to ensure that you collectively get their different styles to work for you and as work in a team. I remember when I became branch manager in Hindustan Lever in the South, I remember a May meeting in 1993. I was trying to convince my 5 sales managers, 4 bright MBAs and 1 experienced sales manager called Lakshmanan. I was trying to convince them of the targets. It was a miserable meeting because I was trying to be very, friendly, very approachable, blah, blah, etc. At the end of a very bad meeting, okay, at about 6 o'clock, I told Lax, the senior most member in the team, a ranker who had grown up, an outstanding sales manager. I said, Lax, let's go out for a drink. He said, yeah, sure. So we went to, Savera Hotel, where Lax had his whiskey and I had my fresh lime water salt. And I asked him, Lax, tell me, how was the meeting? He said, Shiv, disaster. I said, what happened? He said, if you don't mind, Shiv, the problem is you. You're trying to convince everybody and expecting everybody to agree. He said, Shiv, nobody will agree on a target. As long as it's in the broad direction, just go and say, I'm the boss, I'm saying it, close. At that point of time, I developed a very simple philosophy to say 60% agreement, but 100% commitment. I never look for 100% agreement in any meeting I run. Never, ever. Okay, because nobody will agree to everything that you have to say. As long as there's 60% agreement, you're on the ballpark, say, okay, closed, agenda closed, we move ahead. But I expect 100% commitment. So do not impose your style of working on your people and do not expect to have 100% agreement on all issues. Do not think it's a reflection on you. It's actually a reflection on them. And the third mistake, which again I've made and I'm still telling you, never try to be popular. Always try to be respected. Be respected for who you are, not try to be popular. If you want to be a popular leader, please go give ice cream to people every day. If you are a respected leader, come to the table with ideas, challenge them to a new level of thinking. Anybody who's worked with me will always tell you that Shiv will challenge you to the next level of thinking. You cannot work at the same level that you were before. That is what earns respect. And legacy is about respect. Legacy is not about popularity.
I think you had me at the popular one because I was thinking of somebody, and but the earlier session, I mean, earlier comments also you made, and there have been, I've met several other leaders, and this is one consistent theme I see, Shiv, in really leaders who have helped others become leaders, and that is, in my book, the mark of a leader is that how many other leaders have you cultivated or helped grown,
True.
and you've done quite a few, and I can now see why. So moving to one more question, and since I'm just keeping an eye on the clock as well, because we booked an hour, but we are all living in this slightly hyper social or extra social media kind of age, maybe when you started your career, certainly later on when I started my career, none of this was there. We didn't grow
True.
up on this. We've all adapted more recently. Even 5 years ago, if somebody had told me I would be running a show which will be like this, I would be laughing at them. But today, social media or a social presence, or what is also called personal brand, is becoming a part of who we are. And you've evolved, from a leader who was extremely busy running brands and making companies successful into a personal brand. What are the lessons that we can learn from you in terms of this becoming a personal brand? And is it important at all? Because why should I?
First, it's extremely important. Do not ever think it's unimportant. Do not ever say, I don't have the time. I only got onto LinkedIn and social media in 2018. Before that, I was not there. If I had got on in 2011, when Poonam called, my comms head said, maybe you should get on, and we didn't finally do it, okay, the order would be very different. Today, you have the tools, you have the platform. So you must use it. Today, you are the master of your own career and destiny. Your boss cannot help you. Your HR department cannot help you. Your company cannot help you. They're all fighting their own battles. Nobody will tell you this, but that's the truth. You have to play for yourself. You have to ensure that you are marketable, that you have the right ingredients. Okay. So how does one do this? You have to be consistent. You have to have the commitment, and you have to have the communication ability in order to build a personal brand. Develop a point of view on the topic, whatever the topic you're commenting on is. Okay. And reflect on the topic. Being a good personal brand means you need the ability to reflect. That reflective capacity is very important. And then you need to put it out in an engaging, useful manner where people get it. Okay, that's absolutely critical. Consistent commitment, communication, ability to reflect on a topic, and then communicate it in a manner where people say, yeah, that's nice. Okay, that's very good. Some topics are completely taboo, off the table for me, and I tell everybody that. Never post or comment about religion. Never post or comment about politics. Never post or comment about sex. Not worth it. By definition, all these three will divide people. You'll get a whole lot of troll for no rhyme or reason, even if you think you're valid. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time. It's not worth the mind space that you have. Okay. Choose your area of expertise. My area of expertise is management, marketing, business, economy, leadership, reading books. And I tend to focus and sit on that and try to do exactly that. If people follow me for that, I'm very happy. Okay. I'm not interested in other things. Next thing about personal branding, do not tag the whole world when you post a person, when you put a post. People have this tendency to tag 100 people. Absolute waste of time. Equally, when you're tagged, you don't need to reply to everything. You're not a post office. You're not a telegram office. Okay, so be very clear. Only when it's absolutely necessary. For example, I posted on Elon Musk and Tesla. I felt I owed it to Pierre Labat, who took me to the Tesla factory to say that Fremont factory, which is discussed in the book, that, hey, Pierre, we went to this factory, thank you. So I tagged him. Okay. I could have tagged 1,000 people, but he was critical to that journey of mine going into the Tesla factory. And that's why I tagged him. So don't tag all and sundry. Don't reply to all and sundry. Be genuine all the time. Have your core branding as to who you are. Next, don't over exaggerate your achievements. When I see LinkedIn, everybody is a tiger, a cheetah. Nobody is an elephant or a dog or a cat. Everybody is a tiger. Okay. So one of the things is people write, help launch this brand. I was part of the launch team. What did you do? You took the brand to the market. That does not mean you're part of, the whole thing. Be honest in the way you're portraying your achievements.
I think the last part, and Shiv, I've been a little more active on LinkedIn in the last, and I keep telling everybody who cares that you may be 60, I may be 50, whatever we may, and my friends on LinkedIn are 20 and 25. I keep telling everybody that in the digital age, in the LinkedIn age, we are all 5 years old. Everybody started in 2018-19. Whether you joined LinkedIn in 2018 or I became more active in 2018, we are all 5 years old in that space. So and I'm so glad that you said it very clearly that do not over exaggerate, and this tagging business is becoming actually detrimental because people feel that I will get Shiv's attention if I tag him, and Shiv has thousand things to do, and maybe I'm losing any respect that I had in Shiv's eyes if I am unnecessarily tagging him. So great piece. I was looking for a question that came in just as you were bringing this, and since we are toward the end of the show, I will probably take this as the last question. Kenneth Wheeler. Talent mobility was rated in a survey done by LinkedIn as one of the top retention tools. What still makes it not an exciting prospect? The vertical progress promotion seems to still hold more sense of accomplishment. It's more a comment, but anything on this for
I would
Kenneth?
say, as India develops more industries and a broader base of cities, etc., I think horizontal mobility will also become important. For example, in my last role, one of my finance managers told me, Shiv, I'd like to go to this plant because my parents are about 60 kilometers away. I've got 5 years to go. I'd rather stay there. I don't want a senior promotion or anything in this particular city of Mumbai. So people will make choices as the economy spreads to a much broader base of industries and broader base of cities in my book. The other thing is stereotyping. As long as media and social media keep stereotyping that the only way for growing is vertical growth, then that's harmful both to the individual and the company and society. If we think of different models of growth, different models of contribution, which is where I started my session with, I contribute differently to the hamlet and the industry where I operate in, then people will accept the horizontal mode as well as the helixical mode of operation and not just the vertical mode.
I think fair one. So Kenneth, I hope you have an answer. Last question, Shiv, and this is not about career. This is about your passion for books and how you share. I will not ask the question, but I have somebody in the show, Aniket Rai. He is a reading coach in a way. So he helps his coaches start a reading habit and develop a reading habit. So since you post a lot about books, how many hours do you read and write every day amongst all your professional and personal responsibilities? And I will add one question. What is the book that you are reading these days, or books, since I know that you read multiple books at a time? But
First, the way I choose books is, okay, even my wife keeps telling me, why do you read so much junk? You can write about it. Why do you read all that? And I keep telling her, even if I pick 2, 3 new concepts from a book, which is 300 or 400 pages, I'm happy. That's why I read it. So, for example, this week, I have possibly 2, 3 outstanding books lined up. One of them, I don't know whether it will come this week. The first is, Hidden Potential by Adam Grant is going to come out in the next 3-4 weeks. Okay. I've already, signed up for that. Hopefully it will come. I'm going to read a book this week and 17th. It releases tomorrow. It will be in my Kindle tomorrow. It's called The Golden Passport by Kristen Surra. It's a very important book, and she touches on a very important topic, which is many countries for a sum of money are willing to give you a passport. Portugal is willing to give you a passport for $2 million, somebody else for $5 million, etc. And she is analyzing this and saying, why is this happening in today's world, and what does it mean? That was a fascinating topic for me because nobody has ever, talked about it. Then I've just picked a book which I'm reading right now. I'm going to read, which is 1 Hour Strategy. We always thought of strategy as 5 years, 10 years. I've taught strategy for a year or two or whatever it is, dimensions, etc. Now this is a 1 hour strategy for practitioners of strategy. So these are the 3 books in the pipeline for this week, and I'll put out the summaries, and I'm sure that you'll pick them up. I read the other book by Vivek Ramaswamy, which is Woke in, but I thought that a victim, the nation being a victim, which was the second book, was much better. That's why I only summarized that. I didn't summarize the first one. I tend to spend at least 30 to 50% of my time in reading and writing concepts, writing notes, clarifying, making some, position papers, etc. That's what I do. Because finally, in a communication world, ideas matter. And your ability to reflect ideas, think about ideas, construct ideas, communicate them becomes very important.
Fascinating choice of books. I would look forward to the Golden Passport one.
Yeah.
2 quick recommendations. I think one is, of course, Diary of a CEO coming out. I think is just released. Steve Bartlett, really highly recommended. And there is one, Power to the Middle: Why Managers Hold the Key to the Future. I think that is coming out probably Monday. I've pre-ordered it. Bill Schleininger, and it's a McKinsey recommended kind of book. So really nice one. I'll send you the names later. But Shiv, we are over time. I noticed that while talking about books, one always runs over time. So, but to my audience, I will apologize quickly that I can't take any more questions. But what we will do is that, since these questions, Shiv, are mostly on LinkedIn, whenever
You can
you
write
have
to
a
me
chance,
directly. Please send me your questions. I'm more than happy. I promise that I'll respond to each and every one. Okay, I'm always responsive. So send me your questions directly, one-to-one on LinkedIn. More than happy to do that. And if you, going back to the question on personal branding, okay, if you are posting on this session, only if you're, I'm not asking you to post. Okay, if you're posting, here's what I would like you to think about. Take just one thing you learned in the last 60 minutes. Reflect on it from your point of view, your journey, your distance, and then say, this is how I think about this. Not what Shiv said, as much more how you think about it. And that will be, I think, a valuable post for your followers. That's what I'd recommend for you as a simple action point on this session which you attended, linking it to the last question, which is, how much do you read? How much do you write? This is your time to write.
So this is, if you attend a class, then you get homework. So you attended this class, you got homework from Shiv. So thanks a lot, Shiv. I think time to end. One quick reminder to all, and next week's guest, same time, is T. N. Hari. You will know Hari from Big Basket and other brands. Yeah. So he, of course, now runs, co-founder of Artha School of Entrepreneurship. So he's agreed to be the guest next week. With that announcement, I will let everybody go. Thank you very much, and thank you, Shiv, very much. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Take care.